Talking about secularism, this is a term that we have been studying from the very beginning years and is a part of our Indian constitution, the preamble of our Indian constitution. And if I ask most of you, the very first answer that you would give is treating all religions equally. But believe that secularism is not just about treating the religions equally. When we talk about secularism, it focuses on a much broader aspect. And what is that? That is talking not just about the inter-religion dominance that we are focusing on, but also intra-religion. So we are talking about maintaining a society where all religions are considered equal, but within the religion itself there is no kind of discrimination that is seen. And that is one of the most fundamental aspects of understanding today's lecture, which is secularism. So this whole focus of secularism talks about three basic things. First is, as we discussed, the inter and the intra-religious freedom. That means within the various religious groups as well as within one of the religious groups. The second important aspect that we would focus on is the freedom within the religion and equality between and within the religion. So freedom, liberty, equality, and then treating religions equally along with all the members of a same religion must not have any kind of discrimination that could be faced. Now, we begin with a very simple example. Jews for centuries faced discrimination in European nations. Similarly, when Israel was formed, all the other minority groups that were there, for example, you had Christians, Muslims, they faced a different exclusion as compared to Jews. So there is a kind of subtle discrimination that has existed in the society over the years. Also, if we take the case of India itself, we would see that 1984 was the period when you had many of the Sikhs who were massacred. Similarly, Hindu Pandits, the Hindu Kashmiri Pandits were moved out of their homeland. Similarly, you had the Godhra riots where a lot of Muslims were massacred. So what happens here is, it's not just one religion that is at stake, but it's the various religions that are at stake. And when one community is victimized or when one religious group is victimized, the effect is seen across the nation. And that is where we feel that the basic freedom gets denied. So this whole idea of secularism focuses on a doctrine that opposes an inter-religious dominance of a particular religion or a intra-religious dominance of a particular sect. So let's say in this example, we have three religions that are there. If all of those are treated equally, we would believe that this is a secular state. And then from this, I pick up this religion B that we have demarcated here and say the various classifications based on this religion. So that could be, let's say, talking about the rights of the Dalits, talking about the rights of the minorities, talking about the equal status to women for entering the temples. Then this is what is it? It is an intra-religion dominance. We are trying to find out the difficulties or the issues that are present within one religious sect that is there. So, over the years, there was a very, very interesting phenomena about religion, and that was religions are opium of the masses. What does that mean? It implies that we are all worshipping religion, we are all following certain practices and religions because we are still to fulfill our basic needs. Once all our basic needs are fulfilled and we are living a happy and a joyful life, there would be no more religion that would exist. And this term, religion, would slowly and gradually disappear. So that is what is a kind of opium of the masses. It actually is very, very unlikely because we do understand that reaching to a society where there would be no illness, no disease, no separation, no losses, is practically impossible. All these are endemic to the society, they are part of the society, so they would be there. So be it the preachers of any of the religions, let's say Gautam Buddha, who talked about preaching a religion focusing that there should be removal of all kind of suffering from the world. So that means that this is something that still cannot be achieved. So if we talk about a world where we believe that everyone would be happy, content, and slowly and gradually this religion would disappear, it is a practically impossible option that we are talking about. So what we focus on is maintaining what is there, but we are trying to make ourselves a secular state. Now when we say secular state, we focus that the fundamentalism is not at its extreme, because if it goes to its extreme, what would happen? It would endanger the situation within the country. It might create violence and persecution of individuals or minority groups within a nation. So when we focus on a secular state, what is our main important idea behind it? We focus on a mutual enlightenment. We talk about education. Now, the main idea of education is education would reduce the prejudice that exists in the society. Education would reduce the suspicions across the various communities that exist, and this is a path where we can move forward with a secular state. So our goals would be derived partly from the non-religious sources, that could be in the form of peace, removal of discrimination, removal of exclusions, focusing on inter-religion and the intra-religion equality that is there, focusing on religious freedom, then talking about individualistic freedom, which includes liberty of an individual, equality of an individual. So all those would be part of a secular state. Also, when we talk about a state has enormous powers. Now this power prevents any kind of religious conflicts to occur. It also has a power to make sure that a state is not being run by a particular religion, and that is one of the most important aspects. Now over the years we have witnessed theocratic societies. Theocratic societies were the societies which were run by a priestly order. Now a good example of these was the papal states of Europe. Then you had the Taliban states that are there, or Taliban controlled states that are there. So those are all theocratic. But on the other hand, there are also non-theocratic nations, but they do have religious dominance. Now these non-theocratic nations are what? A good example could be Sunni Islam in Pakistan, which is considered as one of the official state religion. Similarly, you have in the states of England, there was no priestly class that was seen as in the theocratic society that we talked about, but still Angelical Church was one of the major sources or the power centers there. So what happens there? If we are talking about religion gaining power, it could be in the form of theocratic, where it is a priestly order and it is to be done. On the other hand, there could be a non-theocratic order, but it could have a particular religion that could be dominant. So when we focus on a secular state, we try to move away from this theocratic and the non-theocratic with a particular religion dominant idea, and there is where we can have this secular state model. So secular state model focuses on providing a equal basis for all, focusing on enlightenment, focusing on education. The next important thing that we would focus today is the American model. American model is also known as the Western model of secularism. Now here the concept remains very simple. You have state and religion. Now both state and religion are mutually exclusive. State does not interfere with the religion. Religion does not interfere with the state. State does not provide any kind of financial assistance to the religion. There is no policy of the state that could impact or bring changes in the religion. There is no different concept that could be brought about for a religion by a state. Even if a religion is trying to oppress a member of the community or a particular sect within a religion, state would not come in between. And that is a mutual exclusive principle where the idea is individualistic cooperation, liberty of individual, equality of individual, everything would be maintained, and the state and religion would remain independent, mutually exclusive. There would be no intersection that would be seen between the two. A very simple principle where you have mutually exclusive units. So simple Venn diagram that you need to understand with two sets which are mutually exclusive. One is the state and other is religion. As simple as that. So that was what was the American model. But this American model had an imprint on the various parts of the globe, and it was seen that after the First World War and the end of Khalifa, in Turkey you had a revolution that was brought about, and this was by Mustafa Kemal Pasha. And Mustafa Kemal Pasha was one of the persons who later on changed his name, and he was called as Kemal Atatürk. Atatürk basically means the father of Turks, and he was one to modernize the state of Turkey. He focused that there would be no Muslim cap, which was known as fez, which would be worn by the people. Western clothing was allowed. Western calendar was replaced by the Turkish calendar, and also you had a new Turkish alphabet which was derived from the Latin alphabet which was used. So there was a kind of change in the system that was brought about in Turkey also. Now this idea had its own roots because the nation wanted to have one thing in common. They did not wanted a theocratic order, which was a priestly order that was run, and nor they wanted to establish a religion. So that was the basic idea behind the American model. What India's model on secularism is fundamentally very different from a Western model, where we say the two would remain mutually exclusive, the state and the religion, but there is a fine line where, remember, there is a fine line where this principled distance can be taken into account, and state can intervene into religion if it feels that religion is bringing in tyranny within the community, or there is negative aspects of religion which are being spread within the community, for example untouchability. And that is where Indian secularism model differs from the Western model. We do not believe in a principle where both of them would be mutually exclusive. We focus on an idea where both of them independently runs, but there is a kind of sophisticated balance with principled distancing, and if required the state would intervene. And that is the sole idea that we focus under the concept of secularism. Also, we do not focus on a concept of church and state separation. So we do, in the previous slide we focused on religion versus state. They are considered as separate, but moreover it was idea of church being separated from a state during because that is one of the predominant religions that are seen. And in India, we do not focus on any such concept where we say that there is a church or a state separation, but the idea is inter-religious equality and intra-religious equality. I repeat again. So, maintaining a sophisticated balance, a peaceful coexistence, a tolerance between the various religions, respect for one another's feeling, and bringing in all clarity in the ambiguities that are there across the various religious boundaries with a principled state intervention. I repeat again, it is principled state intervention. It's not a coercive intervention that we are talking about. It's a principled state intervention. If required, if the state feels the religion is negatively affecting the society, is oppressing a group, there is untouchability, Dalits are being affected, then the state would come and interfere into it. Now, when we were about to conceptualize the concept of Indian secularism, role of Jawaharlal Nehru indeed is very, very important. Now, Jawaharlal Nehru was a person who did not believe in God or any religion. He himself was a major proponent and a major social reformer. He focused on opposition or prohibition and abolition of dowry, bringing in legal reforms, removing sati pratha, and all those were some of the major efforts that were taken by him. So what he believed was, his idea was very, very clear. We have to bring in equal protection by state. So by state is very, very important. So equal protection by state to all religions. And that was one of the major ideas he led. So he said secularism is opposed to communalism, and secularism is there to be pursued in the matter of principles, guarantee the integrity and the unity of the nation, bring in a holistic development of the society, and check for any kind of hostility that is there for a religious pursuit that is there. So bringing in equal protection to all religions is a duty of the state, and that is where Constitution brought this into effect and a Constitution law came in. But still, despite of all these concepts, despite of saying that in preamble we believe in secularism, a secular state, secularism in India still has lots of criticisms around. So let's talk about some of those. The very first is, it is anti-religious. It means that it is against the basic principles and the basic the concepts, and therefore it's very hard to define what is worthy, what is unworthy, what is not undermined and what is undermined, and there has to be a kind of delicate framework that needs to balance equality of all religion. The next important criticism comes from Western import, which implies in the West we said secularism is linked to Christianity, and as we said, it is a church-state separation that is talked about. But that is something which is unsuited to Indian condition, because we focus on peaceful coexistence, and when we focus on peaceful coexistence of different religious community, this is something that is being criticized. If we are taking a lot of elements from them, this is something that is not acceptable. So that is another criticism. So on one hand, we are talking about all Western forms of eating, clothing, livelihood, but here when it comes, it is the secularism being linked to Christianity as in the West is unsuited for Indian condition. The next important is minoritism. Now minorities are a big issue. I will have a very simple example for you. There are 4 people traveling in a train. Let's say one of them is a chain smoker. One of them opposes smoking. So he believes in no smoking. He is a chain smoker. And there are other 2 who are mild, who can go either ways, this or that. Now this chain smoker emphasizes, so these 2 people get in power with one who is the chain smoker. So who remains a minority here? One who is a non-smoker. Now, if you are asked to vote, if they are asked to vote whether smoking should be allowed in the train till the train reaches the destination or not, there would be a vote of 3:1, 3 saying yes, 1 saying no. Now what would happen? Since the vote is coming from the majority, it would be what majority says, and therefore minority comes at stake. And there is where we have the issue of minority communities or minoritism that is seen in secularism, and this is one of the major critics. The next case, in the same scenario, let's redefine the scenario and believe that one person who is a non-smoker here is a severe asthmatic patient. So what would happen? This patient would urge that I would get sick in case you smoke, so either move to another compartment or wait till the destination is reached. So might be there is a consideration on behalf of these three. So there is where you could have adjustments that could be seen. So bringing in a point where people are working towards each other, bringing minorities at a level playing field with other groups is important. We could have a same example. Let's say I'm celebrating a party and it's on a first floor. All the people need to come to the first floor in order to join, and it's an open party, an open invitation to all. So what would happen? There is no lift that is present, no elevator that is present. So all the young, youth, energetic people would definitely come and arrive here. But what about the people who are suffering from, let's say, an injury, a fracture, or a old age people who cannot climb the stairs? They would be left behind. So what are they here? They are the minorities. And the same goes with a nation. So when we are focusing on the nation as a whole, minorities is something that needs to be brought to a level playing field. And if not, that is one of the major criticisms of the Indian secularism, because the majority would gain the stake here. The next interesting concept is interventionist. Interventionist means the secular nations interferes with the religious community. Now, when a secularism is interfering with the religious community, it is against the ideas of being a secular state. It cannot intervene. There has to be a principled distance. So if there is a wrong interpretation of the Indian secularism model, which talks about a principled distancing, this intervention turns into a corrosive or an invasive intervention, we could say, and this invasive intervention would definitely harm one or the other religious community that would be there. So it's very important that state should have the power to act as a facilitator and make sure that liberal and democratic voices are raised across the state or the nation. The next important is the vote bank politics, and that is something you are much more aware than me. So what the idea is, sometimes there is secularism which encourages the politics of vote bank, and the democratic concept where we are talking about politicians are bound to seek vote, they would work for the vote bank politics. So again, they might go towards a majoritism, and this is something which is linked with minoritism. So you have vote bank politics as an important element that we focus on. And the last is an impossible project, and this is something which is very practical, we could say. What is rooted deep into your mind and hearts is hard to be removed. So if there is an idea that we are together, then there is no one who can throw out that idea from your mind. On the other hand, there is a deep rooted idea of, let's say, a separation between two religions, then that again is a problematic scenario. So if there is a deep-rooted hatredness, we could say there could be never peaceful coexistence that could occur. And if there is a deep-rooted peaceful coexistence, there is no conflicts that could occur. As simple as that. But this is not just an Indian scenario. From India, world has gained a lot. India was a land of diversity and a diversified culture. But with globalization, what is coming up? With globalization, you have across world, you have variety of people moving across from various religions, various cultures, and slowly and gradually the European nations, the American nations are turning into a global village, and there is where diversity is present everywhere. So those are some of the most important things that we have understood in this lecture. Some of the most important takeaways: secularism does not talk about just inter-religion, but it talks about intra-religion equality as well. Removing any kind of dominance is important. The next is India's model on secularism and the American model, which focuses on mutually exclusive units of state and religion, or church and state. And then we focus on Indian secularism, Nehru's vision about it, and the major criticisms of Indian secularism. It was one of the most important topics of the political theory. We would be coming up with many more interesting lectures on political science, 11th and 12th. Stay tuned. Have a wonderful day ahead.